The echo of betrayal. The cold blue light of the distant star Procyon 9 cast long shadows across the surface of Eidolon, the barren moon where Dr. Alina Wade had spent the last 6 months of her life. The excavation site stretched before her, a sprawling network of trenches and equipment surrounding the partially unearthed structure they discovered beneath the moon's crust. Alina adjusted her environmental suit and gazed up at the gas giant Theseus looming large in the sky, its rings catching the starlight. "Dr. Wade, you should see this." The voice of her assistant, Terk Hassan, crackled through her comms. Alina made her way down the carved stone steps into the central chamber they'd uncovered 3 weeks ago. The chamber walls were inscribed with symbols unlike any they had encountered before. Not Praxian, not Solrin, not from any known civilization in the Galactic Commonwealth's extensive archives. "What is it, Terk?" she asked, ducking under a support beam. Terk stood beside a cylindrical pedestal in the center of the chamber. The team just uncovered this. Resting on the pedestal was an object that seemed to defy description, a crystalline structure that shifted between states of matter, neither solid nor liquid, pulsing with an inner light that made Alina's eyes water when she tried to focus on it directly. "Incredible," she whispered, circling the pedestal. "Have you taken readings?" "Yes, but our equipment keeps malfunctioning. It's emitting some kind of energy signature we can't identify." Alina reached out, her hand hovering inches from the surface of the object. "I wouldn't," Terk warned. "Noted," she pulled her hand back. "Let's get a containment unit in here and inform the Commonwealth. This falls under reporting protocols for xenoarchaeological finds of significance." "Already done," Terk replied. "They're sending a science vessel, ETA 16 hours. Alina nodded, unable to tear her eyes away from the artifact. "We'll call it the Resonance for now. It seems to be responding to our presence somehow." The artifact pulsed, as if in acknowledgement of its new name. 16 hours later, Alina stood in the makeshift landing bay as the Commonwealth vessel descended through Eidolon's thin atmosphere. The sleek, gunmetal gray ship bore the insignia of the Commonwealth Science Division, but Alina couldn't help noticing the military-grade weaponry on its hull, unusual for a research vessel. The bay pressurized as the ship docked, and the airlock cycled open. A tall man in the crisp uniform of a Commonwealth officer stepped out, followed by a team of scientists in white environmental suits. "Dr. Alina Wade," the officer extended his hand. "Admiral Darius Vex, Commonwealth Special Projects Division." Alina shook his hand, nodding his firm grip and calculating eyes. "An admiral for a scientific find? The Commonwealth must be taking this seriously." "More than you know, Doctor." Vex gestured to a man beside him. "This is Dr. Julian Reeves, our lead xenophysicist." Dr. Reeves was shorter than Vex, with prematurely gray hair and quick, darting eyes that seemed to analyze everything they fell upon. "Dr. Wade, your discovery may be the most significant find in Commonwealth history." "You haven't even seen it yet," Alina remarked. "We've reviewed your preliminary data," Reeves replied. "It's unprecedented." Admiral Vex stepped forward. "If you wouldn't mind showing us to the artifact." Alina led them through the excavation site, detailing their findings as they walked. The structure appears to be at least 12,000 years old, predating any known civilization in this sector. The beings who built it, we're calling them the architects for now, seem to have technology far beyond our current understanding. "And what do you believe the purpose of the artifact is?" Vex asked. "That's just it. We don't know. It could be anything from a power source to a communication device to a religious relic." They entered the central chamber where the resonance still pulsed on its pedestal, now surrounded by monitoring equipment. Alina watched as both Vex and Reeves stopped short, their faces illuminated by the artifact's shifting light. "Remarkable," Reeves whispered. Vex's expression was unreadable. "Have you attempted to activate it?" "Activate it?" Alina frowned. "No, of course not. We don't understand what it is or how it functions. Standard protocols dictate." Yes, Vex waved a dismissive hand. "But surely you must have theories." Alina hesitated. It seems to respond to organic presence. The energy output increases when someone approaches it, but that's as far as we've gone. The risk of... Dr. Wade, Reeves interrupted, would you mind if we set up our own equipment? We have sensors designed specifically for anomalous energy readings. Of course, Elena replied, though something about their eagerness unsettled her. Just be careful. This site is still under my jurisdiction as lead xenoarchaeologist. Naturally, Vex said with a thin smile that didn't reach his eyes. The Commonwealth appreciates your discovery, Doctor. Rest assured, we'll handle this with the utmost care. Over the next 3 weeks, the excavation site transformed into a full research facility. Commonwealth personnel outnumbered Elena's original team 5-1. New equipment arrived daily, much of it unlike anything Elena had seen before. She stood in the observation room, watching as Dr. Reeves directed a series of tests on the artifact. Its pulsing had intensified, and now it occasionally emitted bursts of energy that registered on their sensors but seemed to have no physical effect. Terk approached, handing her a data tablet. The latest readings, Doctor. Elena scanned the information, her frown deepening. These energy signatures, they're affecting the local spacetime. Yes, Terk replied. Dr. Reeves says it's a minor effect, nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about? Elena looked up sharply. Terk, this thing is bending reality around itself. That's not minor by any definition. The door slid open and Admiral Vex entered. Dr. Wade, a word. Elena handed the tablet back to Terk and followed Vex into the corridor. Your concerns have been noted, Vex said without preamble. You've been reading my reports. Of course, this is a Commonwealth operation now. Elena crossed her arms. Then you know I've recommended suspending all active testing until we better understand the artifact's nature. And the Science Division believes we can only understand it through continued testing. Admiral, with all due respect, the resonance is exhibiting properties that could be potentially dangerous. The spacetime distortions are well within acceptable parameters, Vex finished for her. Dr. Wade, I understand your caution, but the Commonwealth has interests beyond pure academic research. What interests? Elena challenged. Vex's expression hardened. National security interests. The artifact's energy manipulation capabilities could revolutionize our defensive systems. Defensive systems, Elena repeated flatly. You're looking at this as a weapon. I'm looking at it as an opportunity. Vex's voice lowered. There are forces beyond our borders that would not hesitate to use such technology against us. The Praxian Collective has been expanding aggressively. The Solran Empire grows more hostile by the day. So this is about power, Elena said, not understanding an ancient civilization or advancing knowledge. Power ensures survival, Doctor. History has taught us that much. Elena shook her head. The artifact wasn't designed as a weapon. Everything about the chamber, the inscriptions, they suggest reverence, protection. The architects were safeguarding this technology, not deploying it. Your interpretation, Vex replied coldly. Dr. Reeves has other theories. I want to see all the test data, Elena demanded. Everything. You don't have the clearance. This is my discovery, Admiral, my site. Was your site? Vex handed her a digital order. As of 800 hours today, the Commonwealth has officially assumed full control of the Eidolon excavation under Emergency Protocol 37B. Elena stared at the order in disbelief. You can't do this. It's already done. You and your team are welcome to stay on as consultants, but operational decisions now fall to Commonwealth Command. Elena watched as Vex walked away, her mind racing. Something was very wrong here. The secrecy, the military presence, the eagerness to weaponize a technology they barely understood. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She paced her quarters, reviewing everything she knew about the resonance. The artifact was old, incredibly old, yet it seemed to be in perfect condition. The energy it emitted manipulated spacetime in ways that shouldn't be possible according to current physics. and the architects had gone to extraordinary lengths to house it in a protected chamber on a remote moon. There was a soft knock at her door. Elena opened it to find Terk looking nervous. "You need to see this," he whispered, handing her a small data drive. "What is it?" "Security footage from the test chamber. I sliced into their system." He glanced down the corridor. "They're running tests when you're not there, different tests." Elena plugged the drive into her terminal. The footage showed the test chamber at night, illuminated only by the artifact's pulsing light. Dr. Reeves stood before it, directing a team as they aimed what looked like a directional emitter at. "The resonance." "What are they doing?" Elena murmured. On the screen, the emitter activated, sending a beam of energy into the artifact. The resonance's pulsing accelerated, and a wave of distortion rippled outward, causing the very air to warp. For a brief moment, a hole seemed to open in the chamber, a window into somewhere else. "That's what they're after," Terk said. "They think it can create some kind of spatial portal." "Or tear reality apart," Elena replied grimly. "Did you see the distortion patterns? They're not stable." She continued watching as Reeves excitedly examined readings, while Vex observed from the back of the chamber, his expression one of cold satisfaction. "There's more," Terk said. "Check the flagship's transmission logs." Elena scrolled through the data. "They're sending regular updates to Commonwealth Central, project designation, void protocol." "It gets worse." Terk reached over and pulled up another file. "These are the projected test phases. They plan to scale up the energy input by a factor of 1,000. Elena stared at the schematics in horror. This could destabilize the entire moon, maybe even Theseus itself. "What are we going to do?" Elena closed the terminal, her decision made. "We're going to stop them." Over the next few days, Elena carefully played her role as the compliant consultant while gathering as much information as she could. She learned that the Commonwealth's interest in the resonance had begun long before her discovery. They had been searching for such artifacts based on ancient texts recovered from a dead civilization at the edge of known space. The architects, it seemed, had seeded these devices throughout the galaxy, though their purpose remained unclear. What was clear, however, was Admiral Vex's intention to use the technology to establish Commonwealth dominance across multiple star systems. One evening, while reviewing test data in her lab, Elena received an unexpected visitor. The door slid open to reveal a figure unlike any she had seen before, tall and slender, with iridescent skin that shifted colors like the resonance itself. The being's eyes were deep pools of swirling darkness. Elena stepped back in shock. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" "I am Nyx," the being replied, its voice a melodious whisper that seemed to bypass Elena's ears and speak directly to her mind. "I am a diplomatic envoy of the Luminar Conclave." The Luminar? Elena had heard of them. A reclusive species from the Outer Rim, known for their advanced technology and isolation from Commonwealth affairs. "We have been monitoring your excavation," Nyx continued. "What you have found, what you call the resonance, is known to us as a nexus key. It is one of many safeguards placed throughout the galaxy by those you name the architects." "Safeguards against what?" Nyx's skin darkened to a deep purple. "Against the void. Against that which exists between realities and hungers for entry into our universe." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The Commonwealth is treating it as a weapon, a power source. "Then they doom us all," Nyx replied simply. "The keys were never meant to be activated. They are seals, Dr. Elena Wade, holding back that which would consume all life." "How do you know my name?" "We have been watching, waiting, hoping that wisdom would prevail over ambition." Nyx extended a slender hand. "It has not. The tests conducted by your Commonwealth have already weakened the barriers between dimensions. Soon they will conduct their final test, the one they call the Void Protocol." "What happens then?" "The seal breaks, the void enters, reality fractures." Nyx's voice grew solemn. "It has happened before to civilizations long vanished." Elena thought of the footage she had seen, of the window opening into somewhere else. "I need proof to stop this. to convince others. I can provide it, Nix said. But we must act quickly. The Admiral plans his demonstration for tomorrow. Demonstration. He will use the key to collapse a star, the one you call Helios Minor. It is uninhabited, a show of force to your Commonwealth leadership. Elinar's blood ran cold. That's a binary system. If Helios Minor collapses, it could destabilize Helios Major, a system with 3 inhabited worlds. Yes, Nix confirmed. Billions will die, and worse will follow as the tier widens. I'll stop it, Elinar declared. I have to. Nix's skin lightened to a pale blue. You will not stand alone, Elinar Wade. The Luminar will aid you, though we cannot act openly against your Commonwealth. Why are you helping me? Because all life in this galaxy faces extinction if the seals are broken. Nix moved toward the door. Meet me at the southern crater at midnight. I will show you what the Commonwealth truly plans and what will follow if they succeed. After Nix departed, Elinar sat in silence, trying to process what she had learned. The artifact wasn't a tool or a weapon. It was a seal, a barrier against something ancient and terrible. And tomorrow, Admiral Vex planned to break that seal in the name of Commonwealth power. She needed allies, people she could trust. Terk was one. And perhaps there were others in the facility who would listen, who would choose the truth over blind loyalty to the Commonwealth. Elinar began to plan. She would need access to the control systems, a way to disrupt the test, and evidence to expose Vex's actions to the Commonwealth leadership. It would be dangerous, perhaps even suicidal, but the alternative was unthinkable. As she worked through the night, Elinar thought about the paths that had led her here. Her childhood fascination with ancient civilizations, her years of study and exploration, all culminating in this moment. She had sought knowledge, understanding, connection to the past. Instead, she had uncovered a threat to the future of all life in the galaxy. And now she alone stood between Admiral Vex's ambition and catastrophe. The weight of that responsibility settled on her shoulders like a physical burden, but Elinar Wade would not shy away from it. She would fight for truth, for life, for the future, no matter the cost. The stars of the Procyon system glittered coldly in the void above Eidolon, unaware that their fate, and the fate of countless worlds beyond, now hung in the balance. The echo of betrayal would soon resound across the galaxy, and Elinar could only hope that she would be strong enough to prevent it from becoming a requiem for all civilization. The fracturing of stars. The southern crater of Eidolon stretched before Elinar like an obsidian sea, its surface reflecting the stars above. She checked her oxygen levels, 4 hours remaining, and scanned the horizon for any sign of Commonwealth patrols. The facility's perimeter sensors had been temporarily looped thanks to Terk's programming skills, but their window of safety was narrow. You came, Nix's voice startled her. The Luminar envoy seemed to materialize from the darkness itself, the iridescent patterns on their skin dimmed to match the night. I said I would, Elinar replied. You promised me proof. Nix extended a slender hand, offering a crystalline data module unlike any Commonwealth technology Elinar had seen. This contains the true history of the Nexus keys and records of the Admiral's communications with his superiors. How did you get this? The Luminar have. Nix paused, searching for the right word. Capabilities your people do not yet possess. We can perceive quantum information states without disturbing them. Elinar accepted the module. You can read data without accessing it. Crudely put, but yes. Nix turned toward a small shuttle hidden among the rocky outcroppings. There is something else you must see, something I cannot merely tell you. The shuttle's interior was a marvel of bioorganic technology. Living circuits pulsed beneath translucent panels, and the controls responded to Nix's lightest touch. As they lifted off, Elinar watched the Commonwealth facility shrink beneath them, its lights forming a web of human ambition on the ancient moon's surface. Where are we going? Not far, Nix replied, just beyond the orbit of Theseus. The shuttle accelerated with impossible smoothness, bypassing Commonwealth detection systems as they left Eidolon's thin atmosphere. Eleanor watched in awe as the gas giant Theseus filled the viewscreen, its massive rings glittering in the starlight. "The experiments conducted by your admiral have already had consequences," Nix explained, manipulating the shuttle's sensors. "Observe." The viewscreen shifted, revealing a section of space that appeared normal to the naked eye. But as Nix adjusted the sensors, Eleanor gasped. Fractal patterns of distortion rippled through the fabric of space itself, like cracks spreading through glass. "What am I seeing?" "The beginning of a dimensional fracture," Nix replied grimly. "Each test of the Nexus key weakens the barriers between realities. The energy signatures from these tests have been detected by the Luminar Conclave across 17 different star systems." Eleanor studied the patterns, her scientific mind racing to comprehend the implications. If the barriers are breaking, what comes through? Nix's skin darkened to a deep, mournful blue. "That which the architects sealed away eons ago, the entity your ancient texts referred to as the devourer of stars. We call them the Voidborn." The viewscreen shifted again, showing a region of space near the edge of the Procyon system. A rift hung there, barely visible except for the way starlight bent around its edges. As Eleanor watched, something moved within it, a writhing darkness that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Is that—" "A scout," Nix confirmed. "The first of many. If the Admiral proceeds with his demonstration tomorrow, the fractures will widen enough for larger entities to enter our dimension." Eleanor felt cold dread seeping into her bones. "I need to get back to the facility. I need to stop this." "You will need allies," Nix cautioned. "The Admiral will not be easily dissuaded from his path." "I know someone who might help us," Eleanor said, thinking of a name she had seen in the facility's personnel records. "If he's still the man I remember." Commander Ezra Thorne stood at the viewport of his quarters, gazing out at the desolate landscape of Eidolon. 20 years in Commonwealth service, and this was where his career had led him, babysitting scientists on a forgotten moon at the edge of explored space. Though lately, he had begun to question whether scientist was the right word for what Admiral Vex and Dr. Reeves were doing with the artifact. A soft chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," he called, expecting one of his security officers with a routine report. Instead, Dr. Eleanor Wade stepped into his quarters, her expression a mixture of determination and apprehension. "Commander Thorne," she said, "I need your help." Ezra straightened, surprised. "Dr. Wade, this is unexpected." "I'll get straight to the point, Commander. Admiral Vex is planning something tomorrow that will endanger billions of lives. I need someone with authority in the Commonwealth military to help me stop it." Ezra studied her carefully. Eleanor Wade's reputation preceded her, brilliant, meticulous, and stubbornly devoted to scientific integrity. Not the type for exaggeration or hysteria. "That's a serious accusation, Doctor." "I have proof." She placed a crystalline data module on his desk. "This contains records of the Admiral's true plans for the artifact. He intends to use it to collapse Helios Minor as a demonstration of the Commonwealth's power." Ezra's blood ran cold. Helios is a binary system if Minor collapses. "Major follows along with its 3 inhabited worlds," Eleanor finished. "And that's just the beginning." Ezra activated the module, his security clearance allowing him access to its contents. As he reviewed the data, the Admiral's communications, the test parameters, the projected outcomes, his face grew increasingly grim. "This violates every ethical protocol the Commonwealth stands for," he said finally. "But why come to me? I'm just a security officer." "Because you have a record of standing up for what's right," Eleanor replied. 8 years ago, you refused orders to bombard civilian settlements during the Praxian border dispute. You were demoted and reassigned, but you saved thousands of lives." Ezra's jaw tightened. "You've done your research." "I needed to know who I could trust," Eleanor said simply, "and there's more you need to see." She showed him the footage from Nix's shuttle, the fractures in space, the lurking presence within the rift. As Ezra watched, the soldier in him gave way to the protector, the man who had joined the Commonwealth military believing in its mission to safeguard life throughout the galaxy. "I've suspected something was wrong with this operation from the beginning," he admitted. "The secrecy, the military resources for what should have been a scientific expedition. But this," he gestured at the dimensional fractures, "this is beyond anything I imagined." "Will you help us?" Elinor asked. "Us?" The door chimed again, and Elinor opened it to reveal Terk, and behind him, the tall, alien form of Nyx. Ezra reached for his sidearm instinctively before Elinor stepped between them. "This is Nyx, an envoy from the Luminar Conclave," she explained quickly. "They've been monitoring the situation. Without their help, we'd still be in the dark about the true nature of the artifact." Ezra slowly lowered his weapon, his training at war with the evidence before him. "The Luminar are involved now? This gets better by the minute." "Your sarcasm is understandable, Commander Thorne," Nyx said, entering the room. "But time grows short. The Admiral's final preparations are already underway. By tomorrow's orbital alignment, the Nexus Key will be fully powered and aimed at Helios Minor." "If I help you," Ezra said carefully, "it's treason against the Commonwealth." "If you don't," Elinor countered, "there won't be a Commonwealth left to serve." Ezra took a deep breath, weighing 2 decades of loyalty against the evidence before him. Finally, he nodded. "All right, what's the plan?" The plan, as it turned out, was audacious to the point of insanity. While Terk worked to access the facility's communications array, Nyx would use Luminar technology to temporarily neutralize the artifact's energy output. Meanwhile, Elinor and Ezra would confront Admiral Vex directly, armed with evidence of both the danger and his deception. "There's a Commonwealth Council session scheduled at 900, Ezra explained, as they moved through the facility's maintenance tunnels. "Vex plans to address them just before the demonstration, claiming full credit for a new era of Commonwealth power projection." "Then we interrupt that transmission," Elinor replied. "Show the Council what's really happening." They reached the central control hub, where Terk waited by a service terminal, his fingers flying across the interface. "I've got access to the comms system," he reported. "But there's a problem. They've isolated the test chamber on a separate network. I can't shut it down remotely." "Then we do it manually," Ezra decided. "I can get us in there." Elinor nodded. "Nyx, are you in position?" The Luminar's voice came through their secure channel. "I am approaching the chamber now. The Commonwealth's sensors cannot detect me, but I must warn you, the key's energy output has increased exponentially in the last hour. The barrier between dimensions is already weakening." "Then we move now," Ezra ordered. "Terk, be ready to broadcast to the Council the moment we give the signal." "Understood," Terk replied. "Good luck." Elinor and Ezra made their way toward the test chamber, using Ezra's security codes to bypass the increasingly tight security measures. As they approached the final checkpoint, Elinor felt a strange pressure in her ears, a sensation that intensified with each step closer to the artifact. "Do you feel that?" she whispered. Ezra nodded grimly, like reality itself is straining. The massive doors to the test chamber loomed before them, guarded by 2 Commonwealth security officers. Ezra stepped forward, his posture radiating authority. "Commander Thorne," one of the guards acknowledged, "you're not on the authorized list for today's demonstration." "Special orders," Ezra replied smoothly, transmitting a set of codes from his wrist terminal. "Admiral Vex requested additional security oversight." The guard checked the codes, then nodded, seemingly satisfied. "You may pass, Commander, but who is this?" He indicated Elinor. "Dr. Wade is with me. The Admiral requested her scientific expertise for the final calibrations." The guard hesitated, then stepped aside. "Very well, Commander, but I need to log this." "Of course," Ezra replied calmly. "Standard procedure." As they passed through the doors, Elinor released the breath she had been holding. That was too easy. "It won't be for long," Ezra warned. "Those codes were genuine, but as soon as they check with Vex, our cover is blown." The test chamber was a hive of activity. Technicians monitored banks of instruments, while Dr. Reeves directed the final preparations from a central platform. The artifact, the Nexus key, floated in a containment field at the center of the room, its pulsing now a rapid, almost violent rhythm that sent waves of distortion rippling through the air around it. And there, overseeing it all from an elevated command station, stood Admiral Darius Vex. Elinor felt a surge of anger at the sight of him, the man willing to risk billions of lives for power, prestige, and control. She started forward, but Ezra caught her arm. "Wait," he murmured. "Look." The main view screen had activated, showing the assembled members of the Commonwealth Council, 12 representatives from the major systems, their faces solemn as they prepared to witness what they had been told would be a historic breakthrough in energy technology. "Excellent timing," Vex's voice rang out across the chamber. "The Council is ready for our demonstration. Dr. Reeves, begin the power-up sequence." "Initiating final sequence now, Admiral," Reeves replied, manipulating the controls. The Nexus key's pulsing accelerated further, and the containment field around it began to flicker with strain. "Now," Ezra whispered, and they moved. Elinor stepped forward into the open, her voice cutting through the chamber. "Stop this immediately." All activity ceased as heads turned toward her. Admiral Vex's expression shifted from surprise to cold fury. "Dr. Wade," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "This is a restricted operation. Guards, remove her." "Before you do that," Elinor called out, "you might want to hear what the Council has to say about your real plans, Admiral." She nodded to Ezra, who transmitted the signal to Terk. The main view screen split, showing both the Council and the data from Nix's shuttle. The fractures in space, the lurking darkness within, and Vex's own recorded words detailing his true intentions for the Nexus key. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded one of the Council members, her face pale with shock. "Admiral Vex, explain yourself." Vex's mask of control slipped for just a moment before he collected himself. "Counselors, this is a security breach. These images are fabricated, part of a Praxian disinformation campaign." "They're not fabricated," Elinor countered. "The artifact isn't an energy source, it's a dimensional seal. The architects placed it, and others like it, throughout the galaxy to keep something out, something ancient and destructive. Every test you've conducted has weakened that seal." "This is absurd," Vex snapped. "Dr. Reeves, continue the demonstration." Reeves hesitated, looking between Vex and the images on the screen. "Admiral, if there's any possibility that Dr. Wade is correct." "That's an order, Doctor." The tension in the chamber was palpable. Security officers stood uncertain, awaiting clear direction. Technicians looked to each other nervously. On the view screen, the Council members were in visible distress, some arguing among themselves, others demanding immediate cessation of the experiment. Suddenly, the lights in the chamber flickered. The Nexus key's pulsing became erratic, and the air around it seemed to tear, revealing glimpses of an elsewhere that hurt the eyes to look upon. "Energy levels are spiking," one of the technicians called out in panic. "The containment field is failing." "Shut it down," Elinor shouted. "Shut everything down now." But it was too late. With a sound like reality itself tearing, the Nexus key flared with blinding light. When Elinor could see again, she gasped in horror. A rift had opened above the artifact, a yawning void that seemed to stretch into infinite darkness. And something was coming through. "What have you done?" Ezra breathed, staring at the rift. Admiral Vex stood frozen, his face ashen as he beheld the consequence of his ambition. This isn't possible." From the rift emerged a form that defied description. A writhing mass of darkness shot through with veins of cold light, neither solid nor gas nor energy, but something that existed in defiance of the natural laws of the universe. As it emerged, reality itself seemed to bend around it, dimensions folding and unfolding in impossible ways. One of the security officers panicked, firing his weapon at the entity. The energy bolts were simply absorbed, causing the creature to pulse with renewed vigor. It extended a tendril toward the officer, who screamed as his very being seemed to unravel, his form dissolving into the entity's mass. "Everybody out," Ezra bellowed, drawing his own weapon. "Emergency evacuation now." Chaos erupted as personnel fled toward the exits. The entity continued to expand, consuming everything in its path: equipment, furniture, even parts of the chamber itself. "The Council has ordered an immediate quarantine of the facility," one of the remaining technicians reported, his voice shaking. "They're preparing to neutralize the entire moon." "They can't," Alina realized. "If they destroy the artifact, they'll only make the rift larger." Through the chaos, Alina spotted a familiar iridescent form. Nyx had somehow entered the chamber and was making their way toward the Nexus key, moving with impossible grace through the panic. "Alina Wade," Nyx's voice spoke directly into her mind. "The seal can still be restored, but it requires a focal consciousness, a mind to guide the key's energy." "What does that mean?" Alina shouted over the alarms. "It means sacrifice," Nyx replied simply. "A consciousness must enter the key and direct its power to reseal the breach." Alina looked at the expanding entity, at the rift that was growing larger by the second, at the terrified people fleeing for their lives. She thought of the billions more who would die if the fractures continued to spread across the galaxy. "I'll do it," she said. "No," Ezra stepped forward, his face resolute. "I'll do it. The Commonwealth caused this. It's fitting that a Commonwealth officer should make it right." Before Alina could protest, a second explosion rocked the chamber. The entity had grown large enough to touch the facility's power core, causing a cascade failure. Part of the ceiling collapsed, separating Ezra from Alina and Nyx. "There's no time to argue," Nyx insisted. "The breach will reach critical expansion in minutes. After that, nothing will close it." Alina looked toward where Ezra had been, seeing only debris and the advancing wall of distortion as the entity continued to consume the chamber. She made her decision. "Tell me what to do." Nyx guided her toward the Nexus key, which still floated in its failing containment field. "You must touch it with your bare hand. Your consciousness will be drawn into the key. Once inside, you must focus your will on sealing the breach." "And after?" Nyx's skin pulsed with sorrowful colors. "There is no after, Alina Wade. The key will consume your physical form to power the seal." Alina swallowed hard, then nodded. "I understand." As she approached the artifact, she noticed Admiral Vex still at his command station, watching with a mixture of horror and fascination as his ambitions literally unraveled the world around him. "This is your legacy, Admiral," she called to him. "Remember that." Vex met her gaze, and for the first time, Alina saw not the cold, calculating officer, but a broken man confronting the consequences of his hubris. "I never wanted this," he whispered. "Few ever do," Alina replied. She reached the containment field, which was now little more than a shimmer in the air. The Nexus key pulsed before her, its light seeming to reach into her very soul. "The architects chose well when they placed their keys in the hands of those who would protect rather than destroy," Nyx said softly. "You honor their legacy, Alina Wade." Alina took a deep breath, thinking of all the paths that had led her to this moment. Her childhood dreams of the stars, her years of study, the thrill of discovery, the responsibility of knowledge. It seemed fitting, somehow, that her journey would end where it began, in the pursuit of understanding, in the protection of life. She reached out and placed her hand on the Nexus key. The world exploded into light and consciousness. Alina felt herself dissolving, her mind expanding across dimensions, seeing the universe not as a human does, but as the architects had, a vast, interconnected web of realities, each balanced on the edge of existence. She saw the Voidborn for what they truly were, the anti-pattern, the undoing of creation, entities that existed to unmake what was made. And she saw the pattern of the seal, the intricate weaving of energy and intent that had kept them at bay for millennia. With her consciousness spread through the key, Alina began to re-establish that pattern, drawing the fragments back together, closing the tiers in reality one by one. The entity shrieked in a frequency that transcended sound, its tendrils lashing wildly as it felt the dimensions closing around it. It fought, tearing new breaches as quickly as Alina could seal them, its vast consciousness battling against her human will. But Alina was not alone. She felt other presences joining her, Nyx, channeling the collective will of the Luminar conclave, the echo of the architects themselves, preserved within the key's structure. And surprisingly, Admiral Vex, who had at the last moment placed his hand alongside hers on the artifact, offering his life and consciousness to strengthen the seal. Together, they pushed back against the void, their combined wills creating a barrier that shimmered like starlight. The entity retreated, drawn back through the narrowing rift, its howls of rage fading as the dimensions realigned and the seal restored itself. In her final moments of human consciousness, Alina saw the chamber around her stabilize, the fractures healing, reality reasserting itself. She saw Ezra emerge from the debris, bloodied but alive, staring in wonder at the glowing Nexus key that now pulsed with a steady, serene rhythm. She saw Terk helping the injured to safety, and the council members on the view screen, their faces solemn with the knowledge of how close they had come to catastrophe. And she saw Nyx, bowing in respect to the sacrifice that had been made. Then her consciousness expanded beyond the confines of human perception, becoming part of the key itself, a guardian of the seal between worlds, a protector of the galaxy she had once called home. Not an ending, she realized, but a transformation. Not death, but transcendence. As the last fragments of her human awareness faded into the pattern of the key, Alina Wade felt not fear or regret, but peace. She had found her purpose at last, not in the excavation of the past, but in the preservation of the future. And somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, the architects smiled upon their chosen guardian, the human who had understood at last that some knowledge was meant not to be wielded but protected, some powers not to be used but contained, some boundaries not to be crossed but maintained. For in the endless dance of creation and destruction, it was not the seekers of power who preserved the balance, but the keepers of wisdom. Not those who would reshape reality to their will, but those who respected its inherent design. In the chamber on Eidolon, the Nexus key pulsed with a light that was both ancient and new, the light of a human consciousness joined with the wisdom of the ages, a beacon of hope in a galaxy that had come so close to fracturing among the stars.